The coronavirus's impact on sports is a story that is moving rapidly. The focal point for average fans seems to be the NCAA tournament. It's an event that defines the spring, and normally everybody can enjoy it. And as of 9:01 East Coast time, they're planning on holding it with no fans, but that could change. There's so much to consider here. You got to weigh public safety over entertainment here. The amateur athletes who work so hard to get to this point. But when you step back and think about the tournament, the one thing that jumps to mind is always teamwork. And that comes to mind because the most talented team doesn't always win, but the team that plays together has a much better chance. And hopefully that will be the mindset of not just the sports world, but the country as we confront the coronavirus. Teamwork with this. Right now, it's not about your brackets or who's going to win March Madness. It's sort of about getting through this and getting back to normal and enjoying sports like we normally do as soon as we can. If you look at a 12-hour period, in fact, it's a span of less than 12 hours yesterday. Just some of the things that happened here, where you had the Wall Street Journal saying baseball's exploring alternate sites for games. That was a little after 1 o'clock yesterday. The Columbus Blue Jackets closed their home games to fans. And then 30 minutes later, Tulsa's football players were quarantined. The Golden State Warriors, they closed home games to the fans. The Seattle-LA XFL game played without fans. The Ohio governor says that the basketball games, the first 4 in Ohio, will be played without fans. That's before the NCAA made its announcement. The U.S. State Department bans non-essential travel. The Ivy League cancels all spring sporting events. Penn State closes athletic events to fans. Washington did the same thing. NCAA at 4:15 yesterday advises against holding sporting events with fans. NCAA tournament at 4:30. The NCAA tournament will be played without fans. Michigan canceled its spring football game. Juventus football player Danielle Bugani tests positive for coronavirus. San Jose Sharks close their home games to fans. The Big Ten closes its basketball tournament and spring sporting events to fans. Big 12 limits its basketball tournament to teams, 125 tickets, and no cheerleaders. So that's at 6:40 Eastern. ACC, right before 8 o'clock, closes its basketball tournament to fans. Ohio State says no football recruiting. Jazz Thunder game at 8:40 Eastern, postponed. That's when we went, wait a minute here. Something really serious has happened. And you turn on the game and you don't know what's happening. And, you know, the broadcasters didn't know what was happening. A lot of the players, the fans certainly didn't know what was happening. And you had some people running around trying to get some details. We'll talk to a reporter who was there, Eric Horn. He writes for The Athletic. He covers the Oklahoma City Thunder on what that was like to be at the arena for 6 hours. And they weren't letting people go with Rudy Gobert testing positive for the coronavirus. Then it continued. The ACC closes its basketball tournament to fans. Ohio State cancels its spring football game. Pac-12 closes its basketball tournament in Vegas to fans. President Trump at 9:04 announces Europe travel ban. Then Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson say they've tested positive for coronavirus in Australia. SEC closes its basketball tournament to fans. Just around 9:30, Rudy Gobert did test positive for coronavirus. NBA season suspended 4 minutes later. Pelicans-Kings game, that was odd too at 10:38 Eastern. That was postponed because the official in that game came in contact with Rudy Gobert in a previous game. 10:44 Eastern, Big East closes Madison Square Garden to fans for the basketball tournament. Then at 11:20, Oklahoma officials arrived to test Jazz players for the coronavirus. WAC basketball tournament postponed due to medical situation. And then Nebraska head coach Fred Hoiberg has influenza A. They weren't sure if he had the coronavirus. He was cleared. He went to the hospital, but they said it was just a severe case of the flu. All of that happened in less than 12 hours yesterday. Here's some other updated information for you. The National Hockey League announced it would make a decision on the immediate future of its season after a meeting taking place this morning. We'll give you an update on that as soon as we get it. Baseball meets on Friday to discuss if they will delay the start of the season. We'll talk to the Dodgers' Clayton Kershaw about that coming up a little bit later on. The California Department of Public Health said large gatherings that include 250 people or more should be postponed or canceled and that would obviously include sporting events. It's fluid. It's moving rapidly. And as I said yesterday, and I firmly believe this, in fact, a couple of days ago, it will get worse before it gets better. And it's been a surreal 24 hours. I don't have all the answers and don't want to project that I have any answers, even advice for these leagues. I think common sense has to be at the forefront here. Can you shut everything down for a couple of weeks, hit the reset button and kind of gather all the information we need? And then if you want to continue to play these tournaments, do you postpone? The NFL with the draft coming up in Vegas. I would be very surprised if they hold the draft in Vegas. There's a lot of things that are pending here. Major League Baseball has a couple of weeks before opening day. But March Madness is upon us, and my feeling was, and still feel that way, we're going to be playing these games without fans, and I think that's the smart approach to have with this. But Rudy Gobert tested positive for the coronavirus. There are probably quite a few athletes right now who have the coronavirus, may not know it, according to the CDC, Center for Disease Control. You may not know it, but if somebody tests positive during the NCAA tournament, then what happens? So a lot of questions, not a lot of answers, but we continue to explore. Jay Bilas will join us. He's covering the ACC tournament here, and we'll get his thoughts coming up in a little bit. If you'd like to get in touch with the program, 877-3DP-SHOW, email address dp@danpatrick.com, Twitter handle at DP Show. Say good morning to our radio and TV partners, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Dan Patrick Show, and our Fox Sports lineup of radio affiliates around the country, numbering 362. We don't have a poll question today because I don't know if there was something that was applicable in this situation. We tossed around some things, but, this is, it's not frivolous. This is something that we'll probably talk about 50 years from now. I think it's that big. With what's just happening in the sports world, this will be something that we talk about. This will be a 30 for 30. Books will be written on this. And I know there's a lot of hate being directed at Rudy Gobert. We got other things to worry about than that. We should. He made a dumb mistake at a press conference, and they trotted him out as if to say, hey, there's nothing to worry about here. We know there is something to worry about. Rudy Gobert touching all the microphones when he went out for a press conference there. But the hate towards Rudy Gobert is not going to solve anything here, folks. It goes back to what I said to start the show. This is about teamwork. It's about trying to understand what we have and how we can get this under control the best we can. Because right now, all of that happened in less than 12 hours yesterday. What is going to happen next? Does the NBA just cancel its season? You got basketball coming up in less than 3 hours. So there's at least 50 basketball games today, Division I. And, the NCAA is in some uncharted territory here. They're in a really difficult position because these teams are trying to qualify for the NCAA tournament. And if they can't play, then they're not going to get that opportunity. Then you have to go back and say, well, the regular season champ gets to, make it, like the Ivy League. Remember when the Ivy League canceled its games, its basketball tournament? That was only a day and a half ago. Feels like it was a long time ago. Now it's so much bigger than this. And the NCAA tournament, with these bids, the importance of that, Selection Sunday coming up, and all of these games that are being played right now. Pretty amazing. So we'll talk to Jay Bilas about that. We'll check in with Eric Horn. He was at Chesapeake Energy Arena last night, Oklahoma City, where they got ready to start a basketball game. And then all of a sudden you realize there was a whole lot more going on. I think when you're trying to put this in perspective here and go, okay, now I got a handle on it. I probably have more questions than I had 12 hours ago, 24 hours ago. But this is what it sounded like in Oklahoma City, the public address announcer telling the fans the game was going to be postponed.
The game tonight has been postponed. You are all safe. And take your time in leaving the arena tonight and do so in an orderly fashion. Thank you for coming out tonight. We are all safe. And you can visit OKCThunder.com for updates on upcoming games.
That's not an easy announcement to make. And by the way, go to OklahomaCity.com. They gave him a piece of paper and just said, here you go. Here, you do it. The game is postponed tonight. Drive home safely and go to oklahomacity.com. All righty. Here is Mark Cuban, the Mavs owner, on this decision.
Nobody at the Dallas Mavericks is an expert on infectious diseases or their spread, and so this is not a situation where you fake it till you make it or try to sound or act important. The NBA has hired people with expertise in those areas, and they're working with people from the government. We have to defer to them, and that's exactly what we'll do. And effectively, if one player, two players, whatever it is, already have it, we'll have to act accordingly, and I think the NBA made the right decision.
That's during the game, and I will say there's some people who should be commended for the work they did last night. First of all, ESPN, Scott Van Pelt did a wonderful job hosting last night, and Doris Burke during the game. Doris Burke is saying, basically, this is really weird. There's something going on here, and I can't imagine that the Pelicans game with the Kings later is going to be played there. And she said probably shouldn't be played, but it was a surreal 24 hours of the world of sports. Not to mention the entire world. How did you greet Mookie Betts when you first met him?
How did I greet him? I was excited. He probably didn't match my level of excitement, but I was really fired up.
He wasn't as excited to meet you.
Yeah, no, I think I probably caught him off guard. But yeah, no, he's been great, man. He's going to be awesome for us, and I honestly didn't know much about him. We don't play him a ton, and he's just an awesome guy. You talk about like great presence in the clubhouse and all that stuff. He's been awesome. The same with DP. David's been awesome too, and I've always loved watching him pitch. So it's gonna be awesome to have both those guys.
We haven't spoken since the Astros scandal.
What happened?
But I wonder about this, though, Clayton. In all sincerity, we look at your legacy, and everybody talks about a great regular season pitcher, and you go back to that game against the Astros, and they weren't swinging and missing, and it's impossible to face you when you're throwing your curveball or you're throwing that changeup, and nobody's missing any pitches there. Did you feel it in the moment that something was up?
No, I don't really. In the moment, obviously, it just sucks. You get beat, and you have to go back and do all those things, and you get back on a plane and go back and think about it, and yeah, it's no fun. And I think obviously it's no secret that we were all affected by it, and as far as would we win a World Series or whatever, I just don't let myself think about it. What happened? It's over. I was upset about it and moved on, and just try to do the best you can with that. And, I could get all hot and bothered by it, but it's not going to change anything. And, as far as legacy and all that stuff, I'm not worried about that. I'm just not. And whatever it is at the end of my career will be good. And, as long as the teammates, and I always think that, as long as my teammates respect what I'm doing and they want me out there, then, I think that's a good career. So that's what I try to focus on.
Well, I mean, it's admirable to do that.
Yeah, let's talk about what are they doing March Madness-wise? Are they going to still do that, you think, or just do empty crowds?
They are probably going to play in front of empty arenas.
Man, that will be weird. And that'd be weird for baseball, too. I can't imagine doing that. I know the Orioles and the White Sox did that when they had the riots in Baltimore, but I can't imagine doing that. That would be so crazy.
But have you ever pitched in front of a really, really sparse crowd?
Oh yeah, all the time. But at least there's still an atmosphere of a major league game. Like even when you play a midweek day game in like a city that doesn't draw, like there's still at least like 10,000 people there. Like 0 people, that would be so difficult.
Yeah, to be fair, you should let Todd take a shot at you. Oh.
When did you get an inkling something was up?
In pregame intros, after they introduced the players. And then, once they got ready to tip off, it just took longer than usual. And, the officials were kind of talking to each other. And then, the Thunder's basically head doctor, Donnie Strack, ran out. And that's when you knew. But actually, I take that back. The real indication, not even when Donnie Strack ran out, to me it was when their assistant general manager, Rob Hennigan, ran out. Because it was like, okay, this is like a front office guy on the court before tip-off. Like, you never see this. And I was just like, okay, this is definitely related to coronavirus. You don't want to be speculative on the internet, so you just kind of sat there and soaked it up for a minute. And then once the music kept running, once those guys kept talking, and then the players looked confused, you were like, "All right, this is the thing. This is it. This is real."
And I applaud you for this tweet. In the name of not spreading misinformation, I won't speculate here. Lot of people trying to gather as much info as possible, including the teams. Thanks for patience. That was a professional tweet by you because it's obviously a confusing time. But, when the PA announcer makes that announcement, the fans have no idea what has transpired, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Everybody's just sitting there. And, I had a friend of mine text me later that night, and they said that they saw my face, and they were like, I could tell that you were trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And that's exactly what everybody was doing. Nobody knew what was going on. The only people that knew what was going on were, the people within those discussions, and we were too far away to hear what was going on. So, the players are confused, the fans are confused, even the people who are getting the information from the officials at the scores table are confused, and it's basically just a waiting game from there. We'd heard in pregame that Rudy Gobert and Emmanuel Mudiay were out due to illness. But, again, you don't want to speculate. You want to wait and get all the details. And then once the team doctor runs out and they kind of confer, and you start to do some reporting, as our guy Shams Charania did for The Athletic, and Tony Jones as well, who covers the Jazz, you find out more, and then you can kind of work from there.
Did you get tested?
I did not. I thought about it long and hard, but they didn't require us to get tested. A lot of the people that are around the Thunder team weren't required to get tested either. Rudy Gobert was not in the building last night, which doesn't necessarily mean that the virus hadn't been spread to his teammates. But, Jazz personnel, Jazz media who'd been around Gobert, in the previous weeks, and then the players were the ones that took priority.
Tom Izzo, kind enough to join us, the great coach from Michigan State. His team 22-9 beat Ohio State. Next game, either Ohio State and Purdue Friday in the Big Ten tournament. Coach, thanks for joining us. What have you been told about the coronavirus?
Well, Dan, I just listened to what you said, and I thought you did it in a very professional and good way, in a human way. I just met with my team to talk about, how we're right now still going. I don't know what will happen in hours to come, but, how it's just immediate family and just all the things. And I'm starting to agree with you. I don't know what is best. I'm leaving it to the experts. We've gone through a lot this year, a lot of different things that have happened, and this is a whole nother beast that I'm not an expert on, and I'm just kind of waiting and seeing like everybody else.
What if the Big Ten asked you your opinion?
Well, it would have been a couple days ago, if I was to be honest with you, where I would have said, hey, let's play the games. And now I'm looking at it and saying, it sure is starting to lean towards maybe it'd be best if things were postponed or canceled. But, again, the problem for me, Dan, is, I hate the social media, and the social media goes crazy on things, and half you hear and see is never true. So I just got to look at the experts in the health field, and whatever they tell us sounds like a canned answer, but that's kind of the area that I would lean towards.
What are you going to tell your kids?
I'm going to tell them, I just told them. I said, listen, we've dealt with adversity of a suicide. We've dealt with the adversity of losing our second-best player for the year. We've dealt with one of our guys, Xavier Tillman's wife, had a baby a day after a Maryland game. It's been one of those years where we've had to deal with some tragedy and some joy, but always distractions of some kind. And we've got to approach this the same way. If they tell us we're playing, we got to play, and we got to try to focus in on the task at hand. And if they tell us we're not, then we deal with that.
What about playing in front of an empty arena?
You know, it'll remind me of my Division II days with Mariucci. You know, I did that a lot. So I probably am one of the few Division I coaches that has that experience. But I don't know. You know, somebody brought it up to us. We scrimmaged Gonzaga this year in Denver. We kind of met there, and we did it kind of in an empty arena. And I mean, it's different, but once the game gets started, it's like everything else. Once the game gets started, it's about the game, you know. And but at this magnitude, I don't know how that'll feel. But if that's the best way to do it, the safest way to do it, I'm all in.
Yeah, but we might hear some things from you.
No, you know, like I said, I've been a Division II coach for 1 year. I've been a high school coach for one, but. Hey, what you see is what you get, you know. There's no surprises. It's whether you want to carry those things on TV is the key.
Yeah, I also wonder if we would postpone this. You know, there are schools trying to qualify for the NCAA tournament. There are schools trying to improve their seeding here. But,
right.
You know, the Ivy League just canceled theirs and said, Yale, you go forward and, you know, good luck. You know, could we get to the point where you just say the regular season champ is going to be representing the Big Ten, and then these games, you're not going to have games where you can go, okay, that's going to help you qualify for the tournament or improve your seeding?
Well, I think it's possible. You know, I think right now, for the most part, you know, most of the bigger schools, I mean, I think we know who the 5, 6, 8, 9 schools are going to be. I think where it's a problem is those schools as Ivy Leagues that their tournament champ is the only one that gets in. You know, the one-bid leagues, and whether they could do that, I don't know. I think they could. I still think you could come up with a selection show and everything, but is it a week from now? Is it going to be any different? I guess that's what I have no clue of.
Yeah, and that's where I just think, you know, applying caution to this and trying to figure out what is really best for everybody involved, and not just this sport, but all of the sports, because it's a gathering, it's a celebration. We're very fortunate in this country to have these opportunities. But I also think that this is such a bigger picture here. And if you postpone the tournament, I hope they don't cancel it. But if you all I would want is a 2-week period here, Coach, where we can just say, okay, how big is this? How bad is this? How concerned? Just pushing it back to me would probably make the most sense.
Well, Dan, for a guy that sometimes I listen to you because I do watch your show. I do listen to you every now and then, more now than then, believe it or not. And I've always had great respect for you. I think a lot of times you kind of find ways to joke with me and this and that, and the serious side of you I think is right on the money. You know, I think the biggest thing is it's all happened so fast. And then when it gets into social media, how do we know what's right and wrong? We've got to let the professionals figure that out, give them a little bit of time so they're not under these deadlines of, do you play a game at noon, do you do this, do you do that? Don't worry about any of those things. Do what's best for our society. And I think that's what you're saying, and I think, hell, I'd vote for you for president on that statement.
Well, full disclosure, Coach K was busy, so that's why we called you. Just to
now you're back to normal. You know what? That's the deal with some freaky things that happen. You got to get back to normalcy.
Yeah.
Dan Patrick just did it.
Yeah, and then Calipari was busy. Boeheim was busy, too.
Hey, the guy at Northern Michigan, where I used to play, is busy, too. So let's cover the whole gambit of people, and we don't have to worry about it. But I do appreciate you, and I appreciate, you know, even talking about it. I wish I was an expert in it. I think I'm an expert on a lot of things. I'm probably an expert on few, but this is one I have no expertise on.
Coach, good luck against either Ohio State or Purdue on Friday. We appreciate your time as always.
Thanks, Dan.
That's Michigan State head coach Tom Izzo. How did you come to this conclusion that maybe we should just cancel March Madness?
Well, it was yesterday when the decision came out. I thought the NCAA acted appropriately in the first step, saying that we're going to play with no fans because the tournament's not for another week. But what was inappropriate was the lack of coordination with the conferences, that all the conference commissioners should have been told about that. The conferences didn't learn, the Power 5 conferences didn't learn about the NCAA's decision until they got an email at 4:30 yesterday afternoon. So when that went out, you knew, okay, there aren't going to be any fans today, meaning, tomorrow, meaning today. And but yet the ACC and the Big Ten was walking distance from the NCAA office, and they played with fans last night. And there was no time for any of the conferences to pivot. So there was no need for the NCAA to cancel the NCAA tournament because there's still time to do that. But I don't see, Dan, how the institutions, the member institutions, can shut their campuses down, tell their students not to come back from spring break, and yet play in conference tournaments when the paid professionals have said we're not playing. And then FIBA came out this morning and said play is suspended until June. That's a tough look. And I'm still waiting for someone to provide a justification for why we play. And I haven't heard one yet. So for me, not only the optics, but just sort of the public health, from a public health standpoint, I don't see how it's appropriate to play and to put these players at risk, even if they can say that the risk is limited now that there are no fans in the arena. I just don't see it being the right thing to do.
Who made this call?
Well, as you know, each conference makes the call individually. Now, I know that the commissioners are now talking about this together to see, to share information, but this should have been coordinated on the NCAA level. Like, this is what a governing body is supposed to do. They're supposed to, like, the NCAA can't just call the ACC and say, hey, we are suspending your play tomorrow. They can't do that. But what Mark Emmert could do is get everybody together and say, look, this is what we're being told by our public health professionals and the panel that we have on this. This is the decision we've come to for the tournament, and we need to coordinate so that we all are on the same page with how we handle this going forward, so that the conference commissioners could act in concert and make the best decision for the enterprise rather than just an individual conference. But, Dan, listen, this is not a craven thing or anything, but there's money at issue here, and money is an important issue. The NCAA office for the tournament has insurance that can help make up for this, if not pay for the losses entirely, because it's a multi-venue event that goes on over 3 weeks. So a catastrophic event that impacts it, they can insure against that. It is much more difficult for a conference to insure against a single venue event. So they'd essentially be paying so much for insurance, they're better off self-insuring. So the conferences are going to lose a lot of money. One, by having no fans, they'll lose a lot of money, but they'll really lose a lot of money if they shut the tournament down from here on out. But I just don't see any other way around it. It boggles my mind that we're playing today.
I want to bring back something that Tom Izzo said about 20 minutes ago. The Michigan State head coach joined us and had this to say. What if the Big Ten asked you your opinion?
Well, it would have been a couple days ago, if I was to be honest with you, where I would have said, hey, let's play the games. And now I'm looking at it and saying, it sure is starting to lean towards maybe it'd be best if things were postponed or canceled.
Yeah, we're putting these coaches in a delicate situation here. Have any coaches been public with their apprehension about this?
Not public, no, because they're good soldiers and trying to maintain an even strain with their conference decisions. But privately, I've had a couple coaches reach out to me, and they've said the narrative that all of the players want to play is not true. That they're scared, they're nervous about this, they're worried about their families. So the idea that all of the players will just blindly compete whenever they're told to compete is just not true.
Fritzy, what did you learn today?
Tom Izzo told us he's starting to lean toward postponing or canceling the NCAA tournament altogether.
McLovin.
Tom Izzo was talking about playing with Steve Mariucci at Northern Michigan, D2 back in the day.
McLovin. Or Seton.
The Meat Friday song Bracket Challenge still on.
Yes, it is. We will continue that. That starts next week, by the way.
We are not canceling that.
And the Celebrity Bracket Challenge, we hope that we're still going to hold that because Todd did such a great job and he wants to remind me of that all the time. Yeah, he did a great job. Paulie, what'd you learn?
It's 6 minutes to the tip-off of the Big East tournament, and it's still on as of now.
What we learned brought to you by LegalZoom, where life meets legal. If you have a small business, use LegalZoom right now to make sure you're set up for success. Go to LegalZoom.com today to take care of your business needs. Enter the promo code Patrick in the box at checkout. LegalZoom, LegalZoom.com. Talk to you tomorrow, hopefully.